All right. Not a bad intro. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, February 9th here. I was going to say in the U.S., but I guess it's Friday, February 9th, mostly everywhere at this point.
Most places. I wonder if it is February 10th anywhere.
I think we got a little bit to go for that. Good morning. It's good to have us both back together, starting the show together. My name is Rich Ross, and of course, as always, I'm joined by Chris Gomez, and yeah, I'm stuck in a container. It seems to have been doing that for a while. But we're gonna play around with some more containers this week. I know we've got some other stuff we might be lining up and thinking about, and doing for future shows, and we might start getting into those depending how far we get today. But made a little bit of progress, and want to kind of share some of that with you all, and just kind of walk through doing that, and hopefully get some folks here to ask some questions or to talk through this. If you are watching live, great that you're able to join us here. Wherever you're watching from in your time zone or part of the world, leave us a comment. Let us know that you're here or where you're watching from or what have you. If you're watching in the future, always happy to have a comment there as well. We get a lot of those from folks who watch the show after the fact, and it's great to hear what you're thinking and what comments and questions you have. But I'll turn it to Chris. How are you doing this morning?
Good. It's Friday. Trying to get back into. We had a good routine going in the mornings. I think being able to head towards that. And it's been interesting because I remember late last year, we started looking at TagzApp, which is Jeff Fritz's project that he works on his stream. And I believe there was an issue saying, hey, let's get all this working in a dev container. And so we decided to take that on and have gotten, it's funny, the speed bumps along the way maybe weren't what either of us expected. But I like this path because I think it's more than just about a dev container. To me, it's about sort of proving to yourself as a developer or a development team, how well do we know our software solution?
Okay.
And you don't have to do this by making it run in code spaces. It's just one way. Right. Because I don't know how many times, probably every time I've worked on a solution at work, and this, very, long career at this point, where the solution has varying stages of readiness. If you just sit down, you're a brand new developer, it's your first day on the job. Some places I have seen lengthy Word documents or PDFs. Okay, developer. If you go back far enough, in fact, you don't have to go back that far, like even last week, of install Visual Studio, check these boxes when you're installing, which just kind of tells me that the organization doesn't have quite a handle on what are the workloads and what are the settings that you need. I mean, they might have a good handle because at least the document didn't say install Visual Studio, and that was it.
And leave you at that.
So, and I've tried to figure out, like, do I know what workloads I need? Do I know, at least relatively speaking? It's really hard. Visual Studio is one of those things where I wish I could figure out the least I could install, but that's hard. So I generally try to stick with workloads. Like, okay, I know the ASP.NET workload I need. I'm not going to take too much out of it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But then other things on your machine. Are there utilities? Are there third-party libraries? Are there third-party tooling? Should you install SQL Server Management Studio? It's like this list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it's often left to just the knowledge within the group, where eventually you get frustrated as the new developer and you say, look, I'm stuck. And this person sitting next to you or somewhere nowadays with a lot of remote work on a call will say, like, oh, you know what? You got to remember to do this thing.
Or if you're lucky, here's a wiki to get started with this project.
Or let's look at my machine and see if I checked this box or did this thing. And then what happens inevitably is you might get it working, but you may not update the document, or maybe the decisions you made aren't exactly the same. So you don't really know, like, think my machine's set up the same as there. So, the whole container idea is can we solve the works on my machine problem? At least that's one of the things it's trying to do.
Yep.
So I feel like if we can get TagzApp working, so as a developer, I could fire it up in GitHub code spaces. That gives me a lot of confidence that we do know what it takes to code on this. And then that way, the next person, look, you can follow this if you want. You don't have to. You can use the DevContainer extension. You don't have to. But at least we know the baseline for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and everybody. Oh, I can't believe it automatically did that. I didn't want to do that yet. Okay.
I think when you share your stage, like, so, I think for a while I've kind of been directing that, and like it immediately switches you to screen sharing. Yeah.
That's fun.
I'm not sure if there's a way to there might be a way to turn that off to basically for our stream, don't automatically, but again, behind the scenes, when you're your own producers and you're producing at the same time as you're running the show, it's live.
Exactly. It's like, whoa, where did that come? It's a good thing I didn't have anything up on my screen that I was worried about. Now, since we're both in here as kind of the same role, so if you click the buttons, you can do that as well, right?
So I'm not actually. I joined the link and didn't log in, so I'm very quickly. I can do that. I can certainly move over, but
that's fine. I can drive. That's cool.
Yeah. So today I don't have. We're using. I mean, folks probably can tell if you watch a lot of tech shows. We're using StreamYard, and we have been for about the last 3 months or so. We've been giving it a try this year. It certainly takes a lot of burden off of what we were doing before, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like that's nice. In with the show we were producing ourselves on OBS, like we had complete control, but then you also have to do everything. So
right. And if something happened to the person who was in control, everything's
over. It's all over. Everything ends.
This way I could leave and Chris could keep going, even though I
yeah, the show would keep going. Well, I guess So anyways,
cool.
Where are we at with this from last time? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, let's swap over to here. Before let's swap to there. Can I do that? No, not at the stage. Just swap this one. Oh, because I wasn't sharing. Got it. I mean, I was, but it wasn't on the stage. Love how they have that thing there. And then just as a bit of a warning, we got some things that are working and some pass through some stuff, but some of this is going to be trial and error. We're trying to get things configured in our environment here. So just if you're looking for, hey, this is how we do this, yeah, it's going to be some of that, but it's also going to be a lot of looking things up and a lot of bouncing ideas around about what we want to do here. So just a little bit of a warning as we go through that. So what we're looking at here is essentially TagzApp, the application, and you can see that over on over on Jeff's. We'll bring his up on his GitHub repositories, his account. Essentially, this is where he's been working and making updates and pushing code to this particular application. I did a fork of this, and we were able to go ahead and get this running on my machine, or get this downloaded to my machine. Now, TagzApp uses a Postgres database, and for that, we are implementing a DevContainer we're actually implementing a container to make that work. Now, the DevContainer that we started to go down, just to kind of bring us between what we did yesterday, or I guess that was Tuesday, right? That's the wrong one. Sorry. Let me just make sure I grab the right one here. I want this one. Cool. So this is the one that we were working on Tuesday. And what we have here is the components that make up our... I'm going to go into the right. Sorry. There we go. As we go into the right GitHub branch, we actually created a dev container and Docker file and things to get it working, and we're running into some issues with how it was behaving and seeing the database, not seeing the database. And to be clear, I think the piece that was missing is actually this part here, and we're going to go through and kind of show some of the stuff that I was playing around with in the days since we last talked. So we don't have, if you look at our container here, we don't have it exposed publicly. The port forwarding that happens inside of this file, our dev container, lets us, and that's this part down here, lets us do the communication into our Postgres container database once we're in that dev container mode. But if I should be able to hit that Postgres container just from my local host machine. And with the configurations that we have here, we don't have any way of doing that because we haven't, quote unquote, exposed a port to the local host. What this dev container JSON does is it exposes a port to the container that our application is running in, that we're dev containered into. So that's why we were able to see the database from inside the container when we're running it as a dev container, but why I couldn't hit it from my local machine and do any work against it. What fixes that, and what we're going to go down now, is this part of, hey, let's make it, am I going to give me a suggestion? It doesn't look like it wants to, but we're going to make it 532 and then map that to 5432. So essentially what we're saying is...
I think that has to be indented, right?
Oh, is it just indented, not dashed?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that I think it had to be indented. That's making a ports array, I believe.
I see what you're saying.
So you want, yeah. You do want the dash. It's just that you indent it. At least I'm pretty sure. Maybe you didn't have to indent it. I don't know. So it's interesting to, I know there's a lot of controversy about YAML.
Okay.
But
you don't say.
It's interesting when you take YAML. There are some converters online that you can run YAML and it turns it into JSON and vice versa. And that it can be interesting to see how the syntax maps back to JSON. And I'm pretty sure when you see the dashes, it's because what you're doing is you're actually creating like a ports object, and now you're creating a list, and the list, well, maybe it's a list, it's a collection of some kind, and 5432 to 5432. So anyways, yeah. So what's interesting here, that comment really threw me off for a while, because when it says here, adding the ports property will not forward from a code space, that made me just stop and say, like, well, I guess I don't need to do this. But I hear what you're saying, is you're saying without this,
right, then
your local machine cannot talk to 5432 in the container.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we can, so right now this is my Docker desktop on my machine. I've played around with a couple different instances of this, but we have essentially the dev container construct that gets created when we run it, is it creates an app container and it creates a DB1. And that's because in our Docker Compose, we say, hey, I need a DB and I need an app. And it's it's basically dropping those in there. And it's also, it's basically dropping those in there for us. If we were to run this one as it currently exists, because it's with the old Docker Compose without the ports on it, and I don't know if there's a way to, there might be if I look at view details of this one and inspect, and it might be in here. Right, there's nothing interesting that it has, but it's not really exposed.
Oh, there was an exposed ports thing. You just walked by it. Is that not what you were looking for? Or that too?
I was, but well, there's this here because it doesn't map to anything.
So further up, there was something,
Yep.
but that's not what you were looking for when it says exposed ports. Oh, I see what you're saying, because it's just an empty object.
Exactly. So if we go into I can bring this up, and let's bring this one up. It's Visual Studio. We're going to close that. If I bring this, and let's say give me a new Ubuntu object. No, what did I? Oh, I think I hit the wrong button. I was trying to be fancy. Maybe it's Alt. Yeah. Okay. So right here, I can say, and now I previously installed this in. So this is just a WSL Windows subsystem for Linux running on my machine. It has the psql command in here, and all I'm doing is trying to make a connection to a localhost instance of, and let me just make sure that one other thing here. Boom. Containers. Yeah, everybody else is off. Okay. I want to make sure it doesn't connect to a previously created one and really mess up the demo, but we get an error, right? Saying it's not running. Even though our DB1 container here is running, we're not able to connect to it because we haven't exposed that port. What we're going to do now is go to, let's see if I can do this. Yeah, we don't want to be here. Let's clear this. Yeah, CD tags. That one. All right. So this is the place where we're actually creating this one, and we want to go into. If we look at this, we actually have a scripts folder, where there are some of the scripts that we're going to need to run and write are listed in there. But actually, we want our Docker folder. So we want to go into that DevContainer one. Let's go there first. So inside of here is that Docker compose that I'll make sure that we just saved it. Cool. Yeah, we've saved it. It's all good. So now I should be able to do. Oh no, Docker compose up, I believe, using that file. And that will recreate those containers that we have. So let's do this. Let's turn this off just so there's no issue. Okay. No such service, Docker. You know, sometimes you just forget the commands here. You got to write run. Dash compose up. Okay. Cool.
I didn't even notice when you typed that it was trying to create a command, trying to say to Docker to compose instead of Docker compose. I didn't even notice when you typed it.
Oh. All right, that should do. Let's see. Cool. Our database is ready to accept connections. Let's wait for the command to finish running here, but I think we're just about ready. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. That's fine. We can do that. I don't need the app. We're just going to put the data just to save some of the resources, because apparently I'm way over my resources here. Let's close that one down.
Okay, so what you've done so far
Mm-hmm.
is you're running this set of containers. You're running them first, just locally.
Yep.
To say,
just
okay.
in a Docker desktop.
Yeah. Right. Using Docker Desktop, WSL2. You installed pSQL on your own to WSL2. I'm just trying to make sure.
Yeah,
Right,
that's a good
right.
point. I went through that setup on my WSL machine yesterday, and it was basically like a sudo apt-get. It gave me the commands when I think, it gave me the command to run. I didn't have to look anything up because it kind of figured it knew what I was doing. So,
but
I had
Postgres is not running. Gosh, it's so weird to know what word term to use here. It's not running natively. It's not installed in your WSL2 instance anywhere.
No,
it's that you fire up a container and then you forward port 5432 from the container. So now this WSL2 instance can act on a database at port 5432, even though that database is in a container. It's not. Yeah. It can get interesting real fast. Okay.
Ever see the movie Inception? All right, let's see. So username for this, I believe it should be. It is probably not. It is probably Postgres. We'll have to take a look at that. Okay. And then also database that we're looking at is Postgres. So that configuration of Postgres. Postgres is the base configuration for this container when you spin it up. I don't know, because since it instantiated a new one, we might have to redo the tags role inside of there. So let's do this. We should be able to see it. It's going to prompt me for the password, which is great. You can see that we're getting some intelligence over here saying that, hey, there's a connection coming in the bottom of the left-hand pane. So use it for Postgres, and oh, wait a minute. It's okay. The POSTGRE, no S. Really? Let me try this again.
When it says the role does not exist, is that something to worry about yet, or?
That might be. All right, let's do. Maybe I have it wrong. Maybe it did go ahead and create it with.
Okay, yeah, it's not complaining there. Okay, so.
Well, we can do /du, and that will show us the roles. Good catch. Okay. Postgres role was not created in this one, and that's probably due to if we go back and look at our. Well, when we look back at our. It's DevContainer or it's the Docker. Sorry, it's really because on the Docker side it should have. Okay, so that is interesting.
Interesting.
Okay.
Which one did you fire up though? The one out of the DevContainer, and then okay.
Yeah, that was the Docker Compose we used. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
But it seems to only have tags, and tags these are all of the roles, or at least all the roles that I've come across that you can have for Postgres. So it's super user, it can create databases, it can do all of those things. So that role is perfectly awesome for what we need to do with creating the database inside of a Postgres environment. And we could do a /DT saying we don't have any relations inside of here yet, right? So there's nothing from a table perspective that is inside of this database. Okay. So now what we're going to do is bring up another window here. And then in this case, okay, CDM. We're going to go into that same directory where we were, except this time we're going into the scripts folder. And the scripts folder is the place where, for the TagzApp, they're managing all of the database interactions. So whether it's something like LaunchDB, which would basically instantiate that Docker container, or all of the other commands in there which are related to migration capabilities. Because they're using Entity Framework, that's how we would get the database created with those pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run .NET EF. Actually, I can just run the command because Dev has it already in the command. So update database. There we go. That's what we want. Update database command. And then that's going to run essentially that .NET command, which is .NET EF or Entity Framework,
Okay.
database update with the context that it's using for the TagzApp context, and then the source of where the model, the project that they're using for the upgrade, because all of the database information is stored in that Postgres project, and then the overall solution file being TagzApp web app, so that it knows you see it's doing a build, and it'll hopefully say the build completes. Then that's what it needs to essentially be to build out the application.
Now, do you know if what this command is doing is trying to, whatever the state of your database is run all the relevant migrations?
Yeah. So I did not ask it because there are a ton of migrations in there. I had previously asked Copilot, hey, I've got an empty database, but I've got a bunch of migrations in for CodeEF. What's the command I run to get that database up and running? And they said, run the update command. So that, as you see, it's actually applying all of those previous migrations that came through. So now, if we go back to our sorry, wrong one. Oh, I guess it's this one. Sorry, it's just a different tab. So now if we go here and we run that same DT command, we get a whole bunch of tables. And those tables are fortunately all of the things that we would expect our TagzApp application to be able to run and use again, or to be able to run against. So information about users, the content, the moderation, provider configuration settings, tags watched, etc. Okay? So we're in a pretty good state that we should be able to now go into Visual Studio and essentially, I'll put a breakpoint here just because I do want to double check the connection string, but I think we can pretty much run it.
Yeah, as we were talking there, it looked like it ran a series of migrations. At least that's what the command line was reporting out.
Right.
And I guess,
all,
yeah. So it's interesting. Like, Entity Framework is not a strong suit of mine. Like, it's one of those things where I think sometimes the best way to really get good with the technology is it becomes a core part of like a project you're doing at work or working with every day.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I've had some in the past that used it, but boy, that was even .NET Framework based.
Okay.
So it's been a little while, and it would be interesting to dive into it more in the show. Like, but sometimes I feel like, wow, I'm not 100% sure what these basic commands do because I don't use them every day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I use it sparingly. And the migrations at some point tend to trip me up. Because I change something and don't do the migration or don't look at the migration right. But it seems to have gotten better because I've not gotten tripped up in starting to play around with this project yet. All right, let's. So now that we've got our connection string, I just wanted to make sure that it's going the right one. So it's localhost. Try that again. No, it does drop off. That stinks. Okay. Localhost 5432 Postgres user tags, password tags. Okay. We're just going to hit F5 on this and let it run. And it takes a few seconds because it's building all the pieces. Well, it should have built all the pieces. It's actually making all the connections and stuff.
Cool.
But we get to this, which is, the homepage of TagzApp. Now, none of the other components are really up and running, right? We've got here, but we've got no data flowing through at this point. If we go back here and bring down there's an overlay, which is a green screen. There's a portrait view of it. There's privacy information. And then a place here where we can actually register the various services that we want to bring in into this. So this is actually, it's talking about external authentication, which might be a good place so we can do one of two things. We can go down the path of getting this working on our machine the way we expect it to, or we can take what we just did and move this all into DevContainer and roll from there. I'm fine with, I think either direction is a good direction because it gets us towards a working version of the application. But I haven't sold myself one way or the other.
I mean, I like external authentication partially because it gets me out of the authentication business.
Yeah.
Plus, it's kind of quick and easy to set up, but you're right. We've talked about this a lot with Blazor, and I know we've done some early shallow diving into it, but I certainly would like to get a lot better at that. It's an interesting part of this that if you start too far down the path of your app and then have to go back and add authentication and authorization, that can be hard.
Right. Yeah.
It's really nice to get a solid foundation early.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, someone coming into this and launching in a DevContainer, they're not going to have any of that in running anyway. But all of that is configuration, right? It's not rebuilding code or anything like that. It's just a matter of wiring up a client ID and a secret, essentially pointing to your identity provider, wherever that might live. And come to think of it, maybe that's why it was failing in the DevContainer to begin with. Because the command we were trying to run was add a migration. And we didn't really need to do that. It should have just been an update or an upgrade.
What, when you did .NET EF?
Yeah.
Do you think without doing that the first time you ran the app, it would have ran the migrations? I guess I don't know. So
I don't know.
Like where
we'll
we're
find out because where the DevContainer is not the one we modified, right? We're modifying this one down here, and this one up here is the one where we were trying to play it inside the DevContainer. So there's we could try it and see what it does.
Yeah. It's yeah.
I mean, worst cases, we know we can just go back out, run the update command outside of the dev container and it'll work.
Yep. Okay. Because the one thing about dev containers is when you spin them down, like when you stop working in it, they get removed versus when you've been working with it just kind of separately. You could shut down for instance, I'll point at the TagzApp ROS container.
Yep.
You could shut that down, but when you bring it back up, its state is where you left off.
The state of the container is where you left off. And
yeah.
More specifically, the DB1 container has a external volume. So even if we were to say rebuild and reopen the containers, these would get rebuilt from the Docker Compose and the Docker files, but the data that we have in the database would still be the same because it was bound to a volume that's persisted on my disk.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. I think we'll be bold and try this. So we realize that the application works inside a studio, and if somebody who is downloading the code for the first time, this is kind of where this level sets them and gets them running. If we try this, so we'll turn that off. I'm going to, we'll leave Studio up and running. I'll push it to the side. That's fine. What I want to do is, let's detach out of here because we don't need those. Okay. Take this dev container. Nobody is running, so life is good. Okay. All right. We're in this one. We've got our dev containers. Okay. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go up to our command palette. Come on. Everything seems to have gotten very slow all of a sudden, so I'm going to actually go and close Visual Studio. Yeah, that's fine. Save it. Awesome. All right. This first one here is what I'm going to do. It's called rebuild and reopen the container. So this, if we go back to our Docker instance, so you can see it's it got rid of the app container. Now that's back. We should get rid of the DB one. Do you want to install the recommended dev kit? Yeah, that sounds fine. All right. They both say they are running. And go to here, and I can -Q to quit, so I'm no longer connected to the container. All right. It looks like we got everybody. Oh, little more. Oh, need finish the extension. That probably should be the last thing. All right. While that's thinking about what it's thinking about, let's go back to here. We're going to reestablish a connection with the new instance of the PostgreSQL that's up and running, right? So we recreated our container. We made it exposed so that we can connect to it over 5432. It should prompt us for a password. There we go. And we're in. Cool. We can see this one has both an original Postgres user that was in there when it got created, as well as I added the role for tags because we were running into that issue when we were trying to build and have it run, it not being able to, essentially not being able to see that, but realize that it is a different container that is up and running. So it's not the container that we used here that we did that kind of test run through of, hey, can we get the database to build and run it against our Visual Studio Code. We're actually using this one down here because we're remote connected into this one. Cool. All right. It's doing the download of .NET 7 because I think the C# dev kit needs that. We'll give that a second or two to go. Is that?
Yeah, the spin up time can take a little bit. And I feel like this is where it's spinning up C# dev kit too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I remember last time we waited a little bit for that.
The other thing we'll look at here is the -dt or /dt for any kind of tables in here. Really, it's just a system configuration table is all that's there.
Okay.
And that's owned by tags. So if I remember right in the code, there is a what is it? Create if not exists for that table. It's the Azure queue. Interesting. Why? We had everything running. What's going on? Oh, wait a minute. Docker hung up on me. That's wild.
Oh, did it just go away?
Yeah. No, I have Docker running. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you wanted Docker Desktop to start.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably under Docker Desktop. At least that's what I think. Oh, look at that.
What happened?
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, you're not even matching on the app. That's odd.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bouncing me out the search. Come on. Nothing. Huh.
That's weird.
That's super weird.
That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, short of a reboot, what else would we do?
Oddly enough, your DevContainer stuff is working, right?
No, so this is not in a dev container.
Oh, okay.
And if I was to go ahead and run it, it would come back and probably say Docker's not running or something to that effect. Because it's not in my tray anymore. All right, let's come back
That's
here
strange.
for a minute. Very. So we're gonna take a second and restart.
Yeah.
Did you see? And I, at least the last couple shows, I'd been bringing some kind of a, hey, I saw this. This is pretty cool, kind of discussion. But I haven't read the article. Maybe we can bring it up and talk about it. Sudo for Windows.
If I ran across it, I didn't pay enough attention. Is this a project on GitHub?
No, I think it's something that if you go to dev blogs, I think it was posted up on there.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me see if I can find it. You know, it's funny now that you're saying it. I am seeing Linux-like sudo command coming to Windows 11. I'm seeing a lot of stuff here. So I wonder if this has something to do with it. Let me share over here.
Okay, I'll put you up on the screen.
All right.
There you are. Let's add the stage.
So I saw this, and then there's an AKAMS link. Oh, it comes back to here. Okay.
Okay.
How interesting.
But that's the actual repo itself, right?
That's the repo, and then here's some stuff in docs.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw Alvin posted it. So
Read the announcement, and this is probably what you were talking about.
yes.
Huh. How interesting. So first of all, it's in Windows 11. It's currently in an insider build. And then it talks about different ways that it'll work. It'll either open a new window that's elevated or do some other things. Work inline, which is kind of the way I think it works, say, typically in Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's definitely elevation. Well, what do you know? I hadn't heard of this.
It came out of the blue for me as well. So this is like an
Yeah.
all new.
We have 3 contributors. And really the whole thing is
I didn't mean to spring that
PowerShell.
on you like that, but
And it kind of feels like the whole thing is a PowerShell script. No, that there's got to be more to it than this. Although I don't really understand how. Yeah, I don't know how this stuff works. Because it looks like there's some settings support within Windows. I'm not sure how that works. Huh. Oh, I see. A helper wrapper around sudo.exe. Okay, so there's a sudo.exe. I see. I gotcha. All right. Well, what do you know?
coming to Windows 11. I guess
Yeah.
I could install it. You could install it now since it's a GitHub repo, right?
So it looks like the GitHub repo contains a script, and it says here you can contribute to sudo ps1. This script is meant to be a helper wrapper around sudo.exe that provides a more user-friendly experience using sudo from PowerShell. Okay, fine. But like it says here, we're still working on open sourcing sudo for Windows, although the announcement said here, sudo for Windows is open source and welcomes your contributions and feedback. When you click there, you end up in the same place. So I guess the sudo.exe is not quite here yet. But it sounds like that's where they want to get to. There's 6 people watching, 13 forks. So interesting. Like this is the interesting part here. Scripts that are written for Linux sudo may not be able to be used directly with sudo for Windows, because that would be something else if one script sort of did it all.
Yeah, that would be wild. But I could see that not needing to be the case. / backslashes notwithstanding.
That's true. I've wondered aloud for a while, like what if Windows had Bash as another console, supported console, like, and I don't mean the Cygwin style, I mean like native to the operating system, but I don't know. That may not be necessary, just because for that same thing is if I'm running a project and I want to basically have an application, I want it to be able to be buildable on Mac, on Linux, on Windows, and I just want, right now what I see a lot of projects do is they'll have like they'll have a command file, a .cmd. This is what Jeff does, right? And then they might have a shell script sitting alongside it, and they both have the same name. So the idea is you bring the code down, you go to that folder, you run the script, and the script gets picked up on Windows and it gets picked up on Linux, and that's okay. But
yeah.
So where we were with the container, because I know you were not only rebooting, right? You were also, it has to fire the container back up, which is not, takes some time.
We rebooted in the hopes that I would get a Docker command back on my window. So let me just do screen share so you can see what I'm doing. Cool. Yeah. Let's do that. All right. At this stage. There we go. So back from a reboot, back to my start menu, Docker, there is still nothing here.
That's really weird.
Okay. It is.
You've only been
weird.
using it like for a few weeks.
I know. But no. Well, this one. There is in program files Docker.
Yeah.
So I have the executable. Double clicking it doesn't work. I can do run as administrator. Nothing in the tray.
Wow.
It's like it doesn't understand, or there's a bad install or whatever. So yeah, I was
Just
planning
all of
to
a
rebuild
sudden
this
too.
machine anyway.
Strange though.
Yeah, hugely strange. I mean, maybe this, but then where? I mean, the installer seems to want to work. Or maybe not. Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that happen.
That's weird too. Like we were cruising and then all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, I broke something really good this time.
That's weird though, because like what did you even do?
No.
Well, that that puts a damper on the rest of this.
Nothing brings the show to a halt in the service you
Yeah.
need not running on your machine.
Because even now running TagzApp locally, you don't have Postgres
have a
installed
database.
locally, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And if we were to give it, I mean, because the repo's up in on my GitHub, you could bring it down, but then we've got to get your containers running and all those things, and we got about 10 minutes.
Right. Well,
we were so close.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll have to bring that code down later and see if I get it running locally, and then and obviously you're going to be working on that machine. Is it a separate machine? Yeah, you're going through NDI, so it looks like a separate machine then.
Yeah, but it's my main
okay.
development machine. So
Okay.
it's my daily driver.
Uh-oh.
But I mean, I love the rebuild story. Like I could do this and I could be back up and running this afternoon. It's really, between all my files being stored in either OneDrive or GitHub, and then my applications being able to get reloaded from my WinGet file. It sounds terrible and I'll be down for weeks, and it's really not that bad at all.
Yeah. Plus, one thing I keep meaning to do, I have a machine around here I can do this with too. I've been meaning to bring up a new machine and try out a lot of like the dev home experience.
Yeah.
Try out the dev drive, stuff like that. I mean, I'm actually not 100% sure. I mean, I sort of know, I've read what they say about dev drive. I keep thinking like, should I just put a dev drive on my machine? And I think what they're saying is make that your target for things like your code folder, because I think part of what a dev drive does is it doesn't do all the antivirus checking that I think Windows and maybe more than antivirus, everything that Windows Defender is doing, which can be a burden. At the last several places that I've been, they'll recommend, hey, if you they configure whatever antivirus company protection software to say, the code folder on the C drive is not scanned.
Okay.
Just because, a folder like that can end up having millions of files, or maybe even billions. And especially if you're like working in Node or something, then what happens is your system is crippled just by all of the whatever your enterprise defender type software is doing. And so I know I've been at places that have said like, hey, do all of your work in this folder and it won't get scanned. And so, that's an interesting thing there. But in any case, places that we are looking to go soon is definitely getting back to Blazor. Is this it here? Is that the dev box that you were showing or no?
So yeah, I was actually going down the path of, I know I have a dev box up. I forget what is in there, but that's something we could definitely take a look at as well. I don't think Docker's in here by default, so it'd be something to add. But I was going down this path to think if that was a quick way to kind of get something running. But
yeah, is this part of DevHome, or is it something else? Oh, so you go to the developer portal and you kind of, oh no, this is DevBox. This is Azure's DevBox.
Yep.
Okay.
So they've made it much better. When I first had to do this, there was a lot of things I had to define myself. Like I had to define my own network and to define the environment, Azure environment that we're putting this into. And there was a lot of structure to it. And that structure is still there. One of the things that seemed to be made easier is we also have Windows, or I'm going to blank on I'm going to botch the terminology, but essentially on the M365 side, or where the Word, the productivity apps are, you have the ability to have your own virtual desktop. And it's just a matter, because it's an end user thing, it just gets spun up. I don't have to worry about what network it's on or those kind of things. And what they did was they gave the option to do that. So if I need a virtual network, because that's where all of my other components for the app that I'm working on, like database or services or things like that, they're all inside of that virtual network, then fine, I can deploy it to there. If I just want a dev box up and running and get it on the network somewhere, that's what this is kind of configured as. So I have that other, essentially that other option to do that. But we can open this in the browser. And then the dev home stuff would work inside of here. Now, I think the last time I remember looking at, well, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it was still like a preview thing to get it into DevBox as well. But anyway, maybe this is something I can look into to get that container stuff up and running quicker than the rebuild of my machine, because it should just be putting Docker on. But it certainly will be more than 5 minutes. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
This is something else that we can talk about in the future, but I know you were talking about some of the things you wanted to look at too.
Yeah, I mean, we had started working through Blazor, and let's see, we spent a lot of time on authentication. We started looking a little bit into component state, and it turns out that that's a sticking point for a lot of folks. Really understanding, once you get into this component world, and this happened to me in React as well, is you get into this component world, you kind of get excited about it, and then you say to yourself, well, now wait a second, how do I structure this so these things talk to each other? Like some things going on in the application kind of happen at a global level, and some things happen at a user level, and some things happen at a component level. But so we have all those same issues to deal with, I think, and we can do that. And then Philly.net is talking about a code camp in the April timeframe, and
April 19th.
And I may end up doing like I don't know what I would call it. Maybe it's like an intro to Blazor sort of refresh. It's kind of meant for people who, I've done some Blazor before, but obviously in .NET 8 we have some very important new concepts that are very different. Or I've never used this before, but maybe it's finally time,
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to develop that workshop, and that's going to take some time to do, and should probably get started since we're only about 60 days away.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a fun one and if I understand the way we've structured this, it's a day, it's going to be a Friday, April 19th, and it will be essentially a morning session and an afternoon session with about 7 talks in each. I don't know if we're going to have them repeat. We are going to do some very strict registration. So it's not like previous code camps where you just walk into the session you want to attend. This is going to be more of, hey, you're going to sign up for this half-day session, not for a cost or anything, it's free, but sign up for the half-day session and be able to sit in and attend on that and reserve your seat. So it's an opportunity for us to do some cool stuff. I know I'm working with one of my colleagues here. We're going to do something AI related. Part probably getting a hands-on, getting up and started with some of the AI tools that we have, and there's a good collection of tools that are possible for that, and we're trying to decide, are we doing one session twice, or are we doing like an intro and then a advanced session around that? So yeah, I think we're going to have some really awesome talks because of the different way we're thinking about putting content together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. So we definitely have some stuff we want to do here. There's a lot of things I'd like to do here. And I know we were really cooking on a few things, and everybody who's watching, thanks for your support. And, but it's getting close to stand up for me, and let me know how things go with your machine. That's kind of a bummer. We were really close there. I'll see if I can get this. If I bring it down, I'll see how close I get, because that would be nice to just sort of validate that what you're doing, it gets put up on GitHub and it's the right way to go. So
yeah, totally agree.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Good luck with that machine.
We'll
get that fixed up.
Definitely. And thank you. I'll take us out of here. Thank you for watching, and feel free, as we said, if you're watching in the future, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We really love the engagement that way, and a lot of good things come out of it, and makes us think about what it is we're doing here too. So everyone have a great weekend, and we will see you all back here next week on the Dev Talk Show.